The darkness falls at exactly 2 a.m. every night, and with it, a sense of dread settles over emergency dispatch centers around the world. It's a phenomenon that has puzzled experts for decades, an inexplicable influx of calls that flood in like a tidal wave, leaving operators scrambling to keep up. But what sets these calls apart from the rest is their eerie silence. In 2018, a study published by the National Institute of Mental Health found that nearly 70% of mysterious calls made between midnight and 4 a.m. were unresponsive, with callers hanging up as soon as an operator answered. This is not just a matter of prank calls or mistaken dialing. These individuals are intentionally seeking help, only to vanish into thin air when confronted. The statistics are chilling. In Los Angeles County alone, emergency dispatchers receive over 1,500 mysterious calls every year, with the majority occurring between 12 and 3 a.m. The numbers are equally staggering in cities like New York and Chicago, where operators report a sharp increase in unresponsive callers during this exact same timeframe. But it's not just the sheer volume of these calls that's alarming, it's what happens next. When an operator attempts to establish contact with the caller, they're met with silence. No explanation, no plea for help, just nothing. The only sound is the faint hum of the dial tone, a haunting reminder that someone is out there, waiting to be heard. The most disturbing aspect of these calls is the complete lack of follow-up. Emergency services can't seem to track down the individuals making these calls, leaving families and loved ones with more questions than answers. The silence is oppressive, weighing heavily on the minds of those who answer the phone every night at 2 a.m. But what's driving this phenomenon? Is it a cry for help or something far more sinister? For over 2 decades, emergency dispatch centers around the globe have been plagued by a phenomenon so bizarre it defies explanation. Every night, at precisely 2 a.m., a tidal wave of phone calls floods in, each one eerily similar to the last. The first reported incident dates back to 1997, when a series of mysterious calls swamped the 911 switchboard in Los Angeles. Operators were bombarded with frantic pleas for help, only to find no one on the other end of the line. Since then, similar occurrences have been documented in cities from New York to London, Tokyo, and Paris. The frequency and persistence of these calls have led many to speculate about their origin. Some believe it's a prankster or group of individuals seeking attention, while others think it might be a case of mass hysteria or even a psychological experiment gone awry. The most intriguing aspect of this phenomenon is the precision with which these calls occur. At exactly 2 a.m., like clockwork, the phones start ringing. Operators have reported that the calls usually last between 30 seconds to 2 minutes, but often there's no sound on the other end, just an eerie silence. The lack of information from callers makes it nearly impossible for emergency services to respond effectively. In 2001, a similar incident occurred in Chicago, where over 300 calls poured into dispatch centers within a span of 30 minutes. An investigation by local authorities turned up nothing conclusive, leaving the true nature of these calls shrouded in mystery. Theories abound, but one thing is certain: this phenomenon has left emergency services scrambling to understand its cause and put an end to it. As researchers began to dig deeper into the phenomenon, a key development emerged. It was discovered that these mysterious calls were not isolated incidents, but rather a pattern of activity that seemed to follow a specific protocol. Every night at exactly 2 a.m., emergency dispatch centers across the country would receive an influx of frantic callers, all reporting similar circumstances. One such incident involved a young woman named Sarah Johnson, who had dialed 911 from her home in suburban New York. Desperate and panicked, she frantically reported that her house was being broken into, but when police arrived at the scene, they found no signs of forced entry or any intruders. The call lasted only 2 minutes, but its impact would be felt for weeks to come. In another incident, a 911 operator in Los Angeles reported receiving multiple calls from the same location within a span of 5 minutes. Each caller claimed that their lives were being threatened by an unknown entity, but when police arrived, they found nothing out of the ordinary. What's striking about these incidents is the eerie similarity between them. Every call shares the exact same modus operandi: frantic pleas for help, followed by an abrupt silence. It's as if the callers are trying to convey a message, but the language of terror seems to be lost on us. The data suggests that these calls are not isolated events, but rather part of a larger phenomenon. Researchers began to suspect that these calls might be more than just random acts of desperation. Could it be that there's an underlying pattern or code embedded in these messages? A team of linguists was tasked with analyzing the caller's language patterns and speech cadences to uncover any hidden meaning. Their findings were nothing short of chilling. They discovered that the average caller spends exactly 27 seconds describing their situation before suddenly falling silent. The words used in these calls are also statistically significant, revealing a peculiar preoccupation with darkness, shadows, and isolation. As we delve deeper into the mystery of these 2 a.m. calls, it becomes increasingly clear that there's more at play here than just a prankster or a glitch in the system. The data suggests that over 75% of these calls come from payphones and public phones, often with no caller ID or any identifiable information. This raises questions about who is behind these calls and what their motives could be. Researchers have attempted to link these calls to various events, such as natural disasters or high-profile crimes. However, the data doesn't quite fit this narrative. In fact, studies have shown that the peak call volume often coincides with areas experiencing low levels of emergency activity at 2 a.m. This is particularly puzzling when considering that many major cities experience a surge in nightlife and entertainment around this hour. Another intriguing aspect is the geographical pattern of these calls. It appears that certain regions or zip codes are more prone to receiving these mysterious calls than others. For example, a study conducted by the University of California revealed that Los Angeles County experienced an average of 45 2 a.m. calls per night, with some areas reporting as many as 10 calls within a single hour. As we examine the psychological and sociological implications of these events, it's essential to consider the impact on emergency responders. Dispatchers who answer these calls often report feeling anxious, stressed, or even traumatized by the experience. The constant barrage of unknown callers can take a toll on mental health, leading to burnout and turnover rates among dispatch teams. While some theories propose that these calls may be related to paranormal activity or mass hysteria, there's no concrete evidence to support such claims. As researchers continue to unravel the mystery behind these 2 a.m. calls, they're forced to confront the possibility that we may never truly understand their origins. As investigators dug deeper into the phenomenon, they began to uncover a disturbing pattern. It started with small-town emergency dispatch centers in the Midwest, where calls at 2 a.m. were consistently pouring in during the winter months. But it wasn't until they analyzed the audio recordings that they realized something was off. The calls themselves were often brief and fragmented, lasting mere seconds before the line went dead. But what caught their attention was the eerie similarity between each call. Desperate pleas for help, muffled whispers, and an unmistakable sense of urgency. It was as if the callers were aware of some impending danger that they desperately wanted to convey. One particular night in January 2018 stood out. Dispatch centers in 3 different counties reported simultaneous calls at exactly 2 a.m. The recordings revealed a chilling conversation between 2 unknown individuals, their voices distorted and panicked. "We have to get out of here," one voice whispered frantically. "It's coming for us." Suddenly, the line went silent. But this was no ordinary drop call. The audio feed dropped with an unusual abruptness, as if someone had physically severed the connection from the other end. As investigators matched the audio waves and frequency patterns, they discovered a common thread: every call at 2 a.m. shared the same digital signature. It was as if these mysterious callers were using a specific device or software to make their calls, one that left behind an unmistakable digital footprint. This breakthrough revelation sparked a wave of investigation across the country. Agencies from law enforcement to intelligence services began collaborating with experts in telecommunications and cryptography to unravel the mystery of these deadly calls. But as they dug deeper, they they realized that something more sinister was at play.